Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Rewind That. It's your girl, Miss K. If this is your first time coming across my channel, welcome. Please consider hitting that subscribe button and make sure you like, comment, and share the video as well. Okay, guys, let's get into this latest episode of Lovecraft Country, episode number 9, called Rewind 1921. Oh my goodness, another good episode, guys. Historic events happening, and we will talk more in depth about the Tulsa riots at the end of this video. Okay, so this episode starts off with everyone gathered around Dee, and Tick and Leti are blaming each other for what happened, but Ruby says, look, y'all all need to take the blame, okay? Now, how are we going to fix this is our biggest concern right now. So Tick says he's going to call Christina. And he knows she'll help because he's going to give her Titus's pages in exchange. At least that's his plan. So now Leti is like, oh boy, because she knows she's already gave up Titus's pages for Christina to make her invulnerable. But Tick doesn't know this. So upon hearing this, Montrose loses it and lunges at Leti because he knows the ramifications or the potential damage of what she is probably going to cause to happen to Tick, if I'm making sense, okay? He knows that by Leti giving up Titus's pages, she may have played a hand in Tick's death, okay, if he dies. And I hope he doesn't, but that's what everybody's afraid of, right? So, of course, Ruby and Tick stop Montrose, from coming at Leti. And Ruby almost looked like she was going to blurt out that Leti was pregnant, but Leti stopped her. Anyway, it doesn't matter because Tick and Montrose know that Leti is pregnant. Anyway, moving on, Christina gets there and she tells them that there's nothing she can do because whatever Captain Lancaster did pretty much died with him, right? Because the curse he did was a combination of Titus's pages and Horatio's stolen ones. So basically, without the Book of Names, Lancaster is the only one who can undo the curse. So it seems hopeless at this point, and Christina lets them know that she can perform a restoration and reset the curse cycle, but eventually Dee will die. So Tick says, okay, do it. And, this is the moment Christina has been waiting for, right? Because she says, I'll do it on one condition. You have to come willingly back to Ardham the night of the autumnal equinox. So Tick, of course, agrees. But before Christina leaves, she gives them a few instructions, and one of them is that Dee will need the blood of her closest relative in order to make this thing happen, right? So since Hippolyta wasn't there, Tick points to Montrose and says, Pop, it's on you. Next, we see some officers at Captain Lancaster's office, and they're trying to resurrect him, but I guess it's not working, right? I mean, he wasn't actually dead either. He was there screaming in agony, but I think what was happening was that every time they brought him back, he kept dying. They couldn't keep him alive, and we also find out that they were kidnapping Black people to use their bodies as the sacrifice for this spell. Anyway, when William, aka Christina, walks in, we see that she did something to reverse Captain Lancaster being able to be resurrected. So instead of being resurrected fully, he comes back only to keep dying again. So basically, Christina has him suffering. So I guess that's what that whole flat looking rock thing was all about. The rock that she had Ruby put in Captain Lancaster's desk a few episodes back. Christina had it out for him for a while because I think they're both after the same thing, which is immortality. Now, I know Christina told Ruby that she wanted revenge on Lancaster for killing William, but I don't see Christina caring for anyone that much. Like, I know she claims she wanted Lancaster to suffer and have 1,000 deaths and everything as revenge for William, but I just feel like Christina is more focused on getting rid of Lancaster to get him out of the way. She's going to remove anybody that's in her way of accomplishing immortality. That's my opinion, okay? She has this agenda of her own, and that's it. All right, now speaking of own agenda, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but it's becoming more apparent that Ruby's agenda is a top priority for her, okay? She doesn't care if Tick dies, just as long as Christina doesn't harm Leti. And I think that this is going to be a problem for Tick and Leti coming up, like, in the next episode, because I feel like Ruby's going to help Christina with a few things. Don't know what they are, but I feel there might be a betrayal coming. And even though Ruby might not see it that way, but let's face it, helping someone kill or harm the man your sister loves is betrayal, okay? Anyway, let's get back on track, right? So because Dee needs the blood of her closest relative, Montrose has to tell Tick that George might be his real father. So Tick is shocked and hurt by this, but I don't know what he's more hurt about. His words say he was hurt because all this time he wished George was his father whenever Montrose beat him. But of course, there was some pain connected to the possibility of Montrose not being his real father, right? Because that's all he's ever known. Anyway, there's no time to deal with the psychological damage this revelation may have caused because they got to save Dee. So I'm thinking, okay, here's the moment of truth, right? We're going to find out who Tick's father is. But I was wrong because Hippolyta returns just in time. So Christina performs the restoration and the curse is reset, buying Dee some more time, which, by the way, it looked like Dee was about to turn into one of those jiggle things that was chasing her. Those demon chicks chasing her last week. Dee was actually turning into one of those. Anyway, so Christina leaves and Ruby leaves with her. So Hippolyta says, look, we got a few hours to get back to the time machine so we can go back in time to get the Book of Names to save Dee. So during this time, we also find out that Hippolyta was on Earth 504, where she stayed there for an equivalent of 200 years on this Earth. She tells everyone that she can name herself anything, and there were infinite possibilities that came with infinite wisdom, which she is going to use to save her daughter. So as we can see, Aunt Hippolyta then came back at the right time, like I said before, okay? As we already know, it won't just be to Dee's benefit, but it will help the whole squad get a hold of that Book of Names. So the gang gets to the time machine and Montrose is going through it, okay? He's having all these thoughts going through his mind of his father, talking to him crazy, beating him, telling him to get a switch. He also hears things that Tick said to him that were hurtful about wishing that George was his father. So because of all this, he's drinking, which is not a good time for this right now, okay? Anyway, Hippolyta fixes the time machine and she connects herself to the machine as a motherboard. She tells them before they go into the portal to be careful not to say anything that might change the future. So Tick, Montrose, and Leti go through the portal and change clothes to fit in. As they walk through the streets, Leti seems to be in awe of this bustling town with flourishing businesses and Black people looking like they were thriving as well. So this part of Tulsa was in a predominantly Black neighborhood called Greenwood, also known as Black Wall Street. So this was pretty cool to see, right? Because it's based on a real town, a real city. Anyway, it doesn't take long for things to heat up. The riots start when a mob of white guys drive into the neighborhood, ready to beat and shoot any Black person they see. Leti was also spotted and chased down the street, but was saved by Montrose's father, Verton, then brought into Dora's house, which is Tick's mother. So before this, we were also able to see a situation between young Montrose and his father, who was beating him with the switch because he caught him putting a flower in his hair. So Leti, Tick, and Montrose are watching this, and it's a sad thing to see, right? It's also a way for Tick to see exactly where Montrose learned his abusive behavior. Anyway, moving on, Montrose runs off to try to save his friend Tom from being shot in the head, and this is a definite no-no because they're not supposed to do anything that could alter the future. So as Tick and Leti watch Dora's sister come out to tell George and Dora that the prom has been canceled, Tick and Leti know it's about to go down. So they turn around and find out that Montrose is gone. Tick assumes that Montrose is going to warn George about being shot in Ardham. So now Tick and Leti have to split up because they don't have enough time to find Montrose and get the Book of Names if they stay together. Anyway, back to Leti, who is at Dora's house. Verton wants Leti to tell everyone the danger they're up against. So, she has to be careful of what she says because if she gives them information that could save their lives, then the future could be drastically altered. Anyway, Tick's grandmother was also eyeing Leti suspiciously because Leti had on these sneakers from the future. So we're going to jump over to Montrose and Tick finds out that Montrose wants to save his friend Tom and that It won't alter anything because Tom didn't play a key role in Montrose's life. At least that's what Montrose thinks. But Tick tells Montrose that he has to be absolutely sure. So I guess after carefully thinking about it, Montrose decided not to take the chance. So unfortunately, we get to see his friend Tom get his brains blown out right in front of young Montrose. Then George and Dora show up to the rescue, but they're outnumbered. And this is when Montrose tells Tick about the stranger that comes through with the baseball bat, busting heads open. I mean, boys and girls were getting it, okay? But Tick realizes that something is wrong because the fight kept going on for too long without the stranger appearing. Then he says something must have messed up when we came through the portal. But then Tick looks down and sees a baseball bat. That's when Montrose realizes that the mysterious stranger was Tick. So yes, a weird moment took place here, but I wasn't mad at it. Tick was like a guardian angel to his parents and uncle before he was even born. So anyway, we see Tick grab the bat and go to work, even on a chick. Hey, what's good for the goose? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, before we move on, I gotta just say that this scene with Montrose and Tick talking about saving his friend Tom was pretty emotional for me, okay? These actors do such a great job at making these scenes so heartfelt. And the scene was much more than Montrose just wanting to save Tom. It was Montrose bearing his soul to Tick about the choices and sacrifices he's made just to be Tick's father. He told Tick that the only thing he ever wanted was to be his father. Next, Leti is in a room looking through drawers for the book of names, but Dora's grandmother comes in the room and wants to know what Leti's doing because she could see that she's up to something. So when she pulls a gun on Leti, Leti starts telling her the absolute truth, okay? And to prove that she's telling the truth, she tells Dora's grandmother about the family birthmark, right? So Dora's grandmother figures it out that her whole family is going to die on this day. So she goes into the secret vault and pulls out the book of names, gives it to Leti and asks her to pray with her. So this moment was also sad too because Leti is a witness to this woman burning alive in this fire. We also see that this is a manifestation to the dream Leti had where she was running through the lodge while it caught fire. She had on a red dress and she was pregnant as it burned up. In the dream, she sees Hannah with the book of names, but in this moment, as she watches Dora's grandmother burn, Leti has the book of names in her hand. And that poem they had us listening to while all this stuff was going on, it was pretty dope. It was deep too, though. I mean, it was deep and dope. Anyway, so Tick and Montrose, they get back to the Stratford and see that something is happening with the portal, but Leti isn't back yet. So Tick goes through the portal to see what's going on with Hippolyta, right? Hippolyta tells him that she can't keep it open. I mean, she's frothing at the mouth and everything. This thing is really taking everything out of her. So while Tick's trying to encourage Hippolyta, Montrose is looking out the window and he starts mentioning the businesses that were destroyed and then has a sort of say his or her name moment where he mentions the names of people brutally murdered during this riot. He talks about Dr. Jackson, who is the best Negro surgeon in America that was shot in the face, and a few others. Meanwhile, Leti is walking through the fire of burning streets, while Hippolyta is using all her might to keep the portal open to the point that her hair turns blue. Now, let's take a moment to rewind because in the very first episode, we saw that Dee was working on a comic and she settled on this black superhero woman with blue hair, which I believe was inspired by Hippolyta, if I'm not mistaken. So the crazy thing is that we're seeing Dee's comic come to life as Hippolyta becomes her daughter's own superhero, and Tick, and Leti's, and Montrose. So Montrose and Leti come through the portal and the episode ends. And I was just like, wow, that episode was so good that when it ended, I was like, wait a minute, it's done. Because to me, it was just so captivating from the beginning to the end that the time just flew by for me. Anyway, so I cannot wait till next week. That's the season finale. But before I end this video, I just want to mention a few things about the Tulsa Riots, which were officially changed and referred to as the 1921 Race Massacre Commission. Okay, so a 2001 report of the riot concluded that anywhere between 100 and 300 people were killed and more than 8,000 people were left homeless. Okay, reportedly, there's been a news blackout concerning this catastrophic event. There were no ceremonies held or memorials for the dead, and it seemed as if more effort was put into covering it up than commemorating the dead. The story was also removed from the front page of the Tulsa Tribune, and it was later discovered by researchers that police archives were also missing. So because of this, it was rarely mentioned in history books or taught in schools. Okay, so this massacre all started when a black teenage boy stepped on an elevator with a white elevator operator named Sarah Page. Okay, a scream was heard from her and he ran from the scene. He was later caught and arrested, and of course, mobs of white men were formed and they wanted blood as usual. But the sheriff and other law enforcement did a good job at protecting Rowland. His name was Dick Rowland, okay? Now, long story short, after the massacre, Dick Rowland was released after law enforcement figured that he accidentally stepped on Sarah's toe. So, because of rumors circulating from a misunderstanding, hundreds of people lost their lives and thousands of people were left homeless, and the Black Wall Street was destroyed. All because the newspaper decided to print a rumor and not facts. Anyway, for more information on the Tulsa Massacre, you guys can click the link in the description box below. That's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you know when I upload more videos like this one. Take care, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.